Yo, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Now in this video we're pretty much going to be talking about whether or not Israel Adesanya is past his prime after what we saw last night at UFC 305 in the main event, where he got submitted by Dricus du Plessis in the 4th round. Now in my opinion, I still think that Israel Adesanya is a high level fighter. I still think that he has what it takes to potentially fight for the title yet again, but he is going to have to work his way up, you know, and there are a couple of matchups that we could potentially see him fight next year and potentially be maybe a win or two away from fighting for the title again, and we're going to discuss that all in this video. But before we do, I would really appreciate if you guys subscribe and leave a comment under this video. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the discussion. So yes, I still think that Israel Adesanya is still a good enough striker, still a good enough fighter to compete against some of the best in the world. He was landing a lot of good body shots, against Dricus du Plessis, and as we were going into the 5th round before he got submitted, I think that he was outstriking Dricus du Plessis, and the numbers don't lie. You know, he wasn't outstriking him by much, but he was landing like 7-8 more shots, you know, compared to Dricus du Plessis going into the 5th. You know, I think if we would have had a 5th round, maybe we could have seen a different outcome. But yeah, I still think that Israel Adesanya is still a very good striker. The one thing about Israel Adesanya right now is that people know how to fight him. People know how to approach the fight against Israel Adesanya now, because there is just so much film, you know, that could be studied around Israel Adesanya, right? Just think about this. You know, Sean Strickland was able to defeat Israel Adesanya from rounds 1 all the way to rounds 5, right? And pretty much based on what we see from that film and from that fight, any coach, right, could pretty much come up with a good tactic and a good strategy to beat someone like Israel Adesanya, who has very specific decision making, right? He is not the super aggro type fighter. He is a lot of the times defensive counter puncher, and he likes to take angles a lot and try to counter you whenever you come in and blitz, which is some of the things that we were seeing throughout the fight last night against Dricus du Plessis. You know, we saw a lot of the times where Dricus was just coming in and going in for a blitz, and Israel Adesanya was taking some of the angles and landing some really nasty body shots against Dricus du Plessis. But Dricus du Plessis had a really good game plan. He had a really good tactic on how to take Israel Adesanya down, and I know I said this in a couple videos ago that Dricus du Plessis was going to be lucky if he took Israel Adesanya down, but he was very smart in the way that he did it, ladies and gentlemen. He blitzed forward, he waited for Israel Adesanya to take an angle, and then he went for a takedown, took his back, and choked him out. You know, it was really smart decision making. Like I've been saying all this time, man, Dricus du Plessis, he's not a dumb guy. He's not a dumb fighter. He doesn't have the prettiest technique, you know. I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of fighters out there that have a whole lot of better, better looking technique than Dricus du Plessis, but are nowhere near close as to being the same IQ as someone like Dricus du Plessis, or having the same, you know, level of coaching, you know, from a tactical standpoint as Dricus du Plessis' coach or his coaches or his development team or whatever. But anyways, that's a different topic for a different video. But Israel Adesanya proved that he is still good. He is still a good fighter. You know, he came in and looked a little bit different. His decision making on this fight was a little bit different because, you know, even though, yeah, we saw the classic Israel Adesanya being a defensive counter puncher, we saw him come forward a little bit more. We saw him, you know, pretty much start his engagements, you know, first, right? Because as we know, we always see Israel Adesanya be on the countering side. You know, it's a little bit different seeing Israel Adesanya be first this time around, you know, and he was finding a little bit of success, you know, and we could still pretty much tell that Israel Adesanya is still getting used to being in that system. But with that being said, he is new to that. He is new to being first. He is new to being the guy that comes in and engages first instead of waiting for his opponent to engage, and then he just takes the angle and counters like we've seen so many times Israel Adesanya do before. You know, based on what we saw last night, I still think that Israel Adesanya has good timing. I still think that he has really good decision making. He's able to land flush, able to take angles. I still feel like he is, you know, a top, you know, level fighter. Some of his decision making was a little off, but that's maybe just based on his new terms of engagement and his new system surrounding being a fighter that has to come first. And I think a lot of that has to do with, like I said, you know, adjusting to what people expect from Israel Adesanya based on what we've seen him do in the past. There's some other fights that can materialize later in the future. I think that the loser between Robert Whittaker and Khamzat Chimaev is probably gonna have to call out Israel Adesanya so they could always stay within, you know, a win or two away from fighting for the title. And in my opinion, I still feel like Israel Adesanya beats either fighter. So with that being said, what I'm trying to say is Israel Adesanya still has what it takes. I still think that he's one of the top fighters in the division. He was giving Dricus du Plessis a very competitive fight up until the point he got submitted. You know, so the narrative that a lot of people are drawing out right now that he is 35, you know, and he should look to go to a different division because he's getting older, I think it's kind of not a good argument. I still think he is one of the best strikers or the best fighters in the middleweight division, definitely in the top 3, and I think that he's always going to be maybe a win or two away from fighting for the title again. So with that being said, Israel Adesanya is still a very good fighter in the UFC. I still think he has what it takes to potentially win the title again, especially right now where we're seeing older, you know, fighters become champions, like Alex Pereira being 37 years old. I know John Jones hasn't been really active, but he is a fighter that is almost close to 40 that is a champion in the UFC. So I still think that there is enough time for Israel Adesanya to maybe touch gold one more time in his career, but we're just gonna have to wait and see for now, ladies and gentlemen. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. As always, it's a pleasure. Peace out and have a good one.